he had never knelt for anything. Not for the Bishop of Palermo, who had asked him to, once, in the specific way that powerful men ask for things, framed as courtesy, delivered as test. Not for the commission table in Naples, though 3 men at that table controlled more territory than small countries. Not at his father's funeral, when the priest had gestured for the family to kneel, and everyone in the front pew had, except Enzo Cavalcante, who had stood with his hands at his sides and his eyes dry, and let the priest interpret it however he chose. He was not a man who knelt, which is why the 41 people present in the entrance hall of the Via Cavalcante on the first Sunday of December would remember the moment for the rest of their lives, in the precise sensory detail of things that rearrange your understanding of what is possible. The cold light through the tall windows, the smell of the pine boughs that had been brought in for the season, the sound, the specific sound, of a man's knee meeting the marble floor. And Sarah, in the doorway, with her mop bucket still in her hand, saying, "Please get up. You're going to ruin your trousers." Her name was Serafina Aquino. She went by Sarah, had gone by Sarah since she was 4 years old, and the full name had struck her as too much to carry into a room. She was 29 years old, from Reggio Calabria, and she had been a housemaid at the Via Cavalcante for 11 months. In those 11 months, she had learned the geography of the house perfectly, which floorboards announced themselves underfoot, which corridor had a draft that came from nowhere visible, which rooms Enzo Cavalcante used, and which ones he walked through, and which ones he had not entered since his wife died 4 years ago, and the door to which stayed closed. She had learned the preferences of the permanent staff, the cook Filomena, who needed the kitchen to herself until 9, the groundskeeper Tano, who left his boots outside the back door and was embarrassed if anyone moved them, the head of security Ruggiero, who took his coffee at the gate at 6:45 and would make conversation if you initiated it and not otherwise. She had not learned Enzo Cavalcante. This was not for lack of observation. She observed everything. It was constitutional. The same quality that had made her mother call her La Guardiana when she was small, the little watcher. She had catalogued the shape of him in the 11 months. The way he moved through the house like something that had decided long ago to take up no more space than necessary, and had kept the decision. The calls he took standing at the window of the East Study, the 2 hours every Tuesday and Thursday when the house became measurably quieter because he was in the room with a closed door, and the staff had collectively learned to breathe less. The fact that he ate dinner alone every night except Sunday, when a place was set for him at the long table in the family dining room, and he sat there and ate in the specific silence of a man who was accustomed to rooms attending to him. What she had not learned was how to predict him. He surprised her, regularly and without apparent intention. He noticed things she didn't expect him to notice, and didn't notice things she thought were obvious, and the combination produced a person who felt, after 11 months, less knowable than the day she arrived. She had arrived in January with 2 bags, a reference from her previous employer in Reggio, a shipping family, respectable, whose daughter she had helped raise for 3 years, and a debt she did not discuss. The debt was her brother's. Luca was 25 and had made a specific, catastrophic series of decisions over 18 months that had resulted in 42,000 euros owed to people who had made clear they would collect it in other currency if the money didn't appear. Sarah had arranged the money through a loan that ate 1/3 of her monthly salary in repayment. She sent the rest home to her mother, kept what was left for herself, and did not think about the 4-year timeline if she looked at it too directly. She was good at not looking at things too directly. She looked at everything else with great precision to compensate. Her private detail, a photograph in the chest pocket of her uniform, which she'd sewn herself because the original uniform had no pockets, and pockets were in her experience, essential. The photograph was of her brother Luca at 17, before the decisions, sitting on the seawall in Reggio with the Straits behind him and his head tipped back and his eyes closed, laughing at something she'd said that she couldn't remember anymore. She kept it there because the weight of it reminded her why she was here. The planted thing she'd noticed and filed away without understanding, a name, spoken once in the entrance hall in October, by a man who had come to see Enzo and had been taken immediately to the East Study. A name she'd heard because she'd been polishing the hall console at the time. The name was Aquino, her surname, spoken in a tone she didn't have a clean interpretation for. She'd kept working. The morning that mattered began ordinarily. It was a Tuesday in November, 3 weeks before the December Sunday that everyone would remember. Sarah was in the East Corridor at 7:15 with her cleaning cart, working her way toward the room at the end that she had been assigned but had never actually entered. The study that was always occupied when she came to it, the one where Enzo took the calls that made the house go quiet. She cleaned around it, always the way you work around a load-bearing wall. This morning the door was ajar. She stopped her cart outside it. She looked at the gap, 3 centimeters, enough to show the edge of a desk, the arm of a chair, the particular quality of winter light through old glass. She should have moved on. She had been doing this job for 11 months. She cleaned what she was assigned and did not investigate what she wasn't. She had a system, and the system had kept her safe, and she was not the kind of person who threw systems away because a door was 3 centimeters open. She knocked twice and said, "Housekeeping," and pushed the door. The room was empty. Enzo was not in the house, she knew this, had registered his departure at 6:40 because she'd been on the front steps with Tano's boots when the car came around. He was gone. The door was open. She was assigned to this room. She went in. It was a working room, not decorative, not performative. A room that had been used every day for years and showed it. The desk was large and faced the window and had stacks of things on it that she did not touch and did not look at. The bookshelves ran floor to ceiling on 3 walls, and the books on them were not arranged for aesthetics but for use, spines cracked, pages flagged. A few stacked horizontally on top of the upright rows because they hadn't fit. She cleaned the room with the careful precision she brought to everything: surfaces, baseboards, the window glass, the floor under the desk chair. On the corner of the desk, partially behind a stack of folders, was a photograph in a frame. She noticed it because framed photographs were rare in this house. She'd cataloged 3 in 11 months. All in the family wing, all of them of the same woman at different ages. This one was different. She could see the edge of it, a corner of a face, and something in the composition made her stop. She did not pick it up. She was very clear with herself about that. She did not pick it up. But cleaning the corner of the desk required moving the stack of folders 6 centimeters, and when she moved them, the photograph was visible. A man and a woman outside somewhere warm. Not a formal photograph. Someone had taken it without their knowledge, or nearly. The man was half turned toward the camera as though he'd caught the movement, and the woman was looking at something off frame, laughing. The man was younger. Leaner, his face had not yet settled into what it had become. But she recognized him. The woman she did not recognize. She moved the folders back. She finished the room. She left. She did not think about the photograph until 2 hours later, when she was in the laundry room and Filomena came in from the kitchen and said, to no one in particular, "He's in a strange mood today. Stranger than usual. It's the anniversary." Sarah folded a sheet. "The anniversary of Costanza," Filomena said. His wife. 4 years today. She took a towel from the rack. He goes to the East Study in the morning, and then he's strange for the rest of the day. Every year. Sarah thought about the photograph on the desk, about the woman laughing at something off frame. He loved her, she said. Not a question. Filomena looked at her. He was a different person, she said carefully, the way people say things they believe are true and cannot fully explain. That's all I can tell you. The name Aquino came back the following week. She was passing the entrance hall at 8 in the evening. She did a final round at 8. Habit, part of the system. When she heard Enzo's voice from the east study. The door was closed. She was not close enough to hear words. She heard the tone. In 11 months, she had heard Enzo Cavalcante speak with coldness, with authority, with something that was almost patience and more precisely described as restraint. She had never heard what she heard through the closed door that evening, something compressed and low, and she understood instinctively, controlled only barely. She kept walking. At the end of the corridor, Ruggiero was coming from the opposite direction. He stopped when he saw her. "Go to the east wing," he said quietly. "Stay there until I come and tell you otherwise." She looked at him. "Go," he said. Not unkindly, she went. She sat in the east wing linen room, the closest room, the room she happened to reach, and she sat on a storage chest and put her hand in her chest pocket and felt the photograph of Luca at 17 and thought, Aquino. Ruggiero came for her 40 minutes later. "It's resolved," he said. He looked tired. "You can finish your round." "What's resolved?" she said. He looked at her for a moment, the look of someone deciding how much of a thing is hers to know. "Someone made a connection they shouldn't have made," he said, "between your brother and the house." A pause. "It was handled." She stared at him. "My brother." "Luca Aquino," Ruggiero said. "His debt. The people he owes. Someone told them you were here." He paused. "Mr. Cavalcante was made aware of it this afternoon." Sarah was very still. "He didn't know before tonight," she said. "No," Ruggiero said. "He found out tonight." She thought about what that meant, about the voice through the door, compressed, barely controlled, about the specific anger of a man who has been made aware that something was happening in his house that he didn't know about. "Is Lucas safe?" she said. "Your brother is fine," Ruggiero said. "The people he owed money to are no longer in a position to collect it." A pause. Waited. "Mr. Cavalcante will want to speak with you in the morning." She went back to her room that night and sat on her bed and looked at the photograph of Luca for a long time. The seawall. The straits. His head tipped back, laughing, she thought. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of this." She also thought, Luca is safe. She held both things at once and did not sleep much. In the morning she went to the east study at 8 o'clock, which was the earliest she could reasonably appear without it looking like she hadn't slept. Which she hadn't. She knocked. He said, "Come in." He was at the desk. He looked at her when she entered, and she could not read his face, couldn't read it the same way she couldn't read him in general, which was the specific frustration of 11 months arriving all at once. "Sit down," he said. She sat. "Ruggiero told you," he said. "Yes, your brother's debt." Yes, he looked at her. 42,000 euros. She met his eyes. "Yes, you've been paying it from your salary since January. Yes, you didn't say anything when you were hired." "It wasn't relevant to my hiring," she said. "I'm a housekeeper. I keep the house. The debt is mine to manage." "The debt attached to my house," he said, "when someone told Luca's creditors where you were working." "I didn't tell anyone," she said. "I know you didn't." His voice was even. "The person who told them is no longer in a position to tell anyone anything." He paused. I want to understand something. You took a job that paid barely enough to service the debt, for a timeline of 4 years. For your brother. Yes, she said. He made the decisions that created the debt. Yes, and you. He's my brother, she said. Simply, not as an explanation, as the whole answer, because it was. Enzo looked at her. A long moment. The kind that in 11 months she had learned to let him have. The debt is cleared, he said. She stared at him. Last night, he said. It was one component of a larger resolution. The 42,000 was, he paused. Not for effect. As though he was genuinely choosing how to say it. It was not the primary thing I was dealing with. But it was there, and it was yours, and I dealt with it. Sarah said nothing for a moment. She was doing what she always did when something was too large to process while remaining upright. She was holding very still. I didn't ask you to do that, she said. No, he said. You didn't ask me if I wanted it done. No, he said. I didn't. She stopped. Started again. That is a significant thing to do for someone without asking. Yes, he said. I know. A pause. I can reconstruct the debt if you prefer. I can put it back exactly as it was, and you can continue paying it down over 4 years. I'll have Ruggiero make the arrangements. She looked at him. At his face, which she had been unable to read for 11 months, and was equally unable to read now, except for one thing. He meant it. The offer was real. He would genuinely reconstruct it if she said yes. Why did you do it? She said. He was quiet for a moment, long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. Because it was yours, he said, and it shouldn't have come near this house, and since it did, it became mine to handle. He paused. And because, he stopped. Because, she said. Because you've been here 11 months. He said, and you carry a photograph in your chest pocket, and you sewed the pocket yourself, because the uniform didn't have one. And you move through this house as though you belong to it, and I have been attempting to understand why that is. And I have not arrived at a satisfying answer. And last night when I understood what you had been quietly doing for 11 months, it became impossible to leave it there. Sarah looked at him. You noticed the pocket, she said. First week, he said. She sat with everything he had just said. She sat with it the way she sat with the things that were too large to look at directly. I need to think about this, she said. Yes, he said. Take the time you need. And the debt is cleared, he said. That part is not reversible, regardless of what you decide about anything else. What happened last night happened. The rest is, he paused. The rest is yours. She stood. She picked up her cleaning cart from outside the door. She went back to work. She cleaned 3 rooms with the specific focus of a person who was keeping herself upright through the reliable structure of familiar tasks. Then she went to the laundry room, which was empty, and she sat on the storage chest, and she put her hand in her chest pocket. The photograph of Luca was there, weight in her palm, in the specific way it always was. She thought, first week. He noticed in the first week. 3 weeks passed. In those 3 weeks, several things happened that Sarah catalogued with her usual precision. Enzo began leaving the east study door open on the mornings he was in the house. Not ajar, open. It had been closed for 11 months. She had cleaned around it and moved on. Now it was open, and she cleaned inside it on her regular schedule. And he was sometimes there and sometimes not. And when he was there, he worked through her cleaning without looking up. And she cleaned around him. And the room developed the specific quality of 2 people who have agreed to coexist in a space without requiring the other to perform normalcy. She noticed, The photograph of Costanza was still on the desk corner. It was always visible now. She had moved nothing, and nothing had moved, but it was visible. She noticed, on the second week, Filomena began leaving a second coffee on the kitchen counter at 7:45, in addition to the single one she'd always left for Enzo. Not labeled, just there. Sarah had looked at it on the first morning, looked at Filomena, and Filomena had said nothing and busied herself with the stove, which was its own kind of statement. She noticed Ruggiero, who had never modified his 6:45 gate conversation, now sometimes walked with her to the East Wing at the end of her 8 o'clock round, saying very little, present in the specific way of a person ensuring something without naming what. On the third week, a man appeared at the gate on a Wednesday evening. He was not on the appointments list. She knew this because the appointments list lived on the entrance hall console, and she had memorized it, as she memorized everything, out of habit and something older than habit. He gave his name to Ruggiero at the gate as Fiorello, and Ruggiero came to find her, not Enzo, her, and with the specific economy of someone who had already made a decision and was informing her of it. There's a man at the gate. He says he knew your brother. I need you to stay in the East Wing. What does he want? She said. To make clear that last month's resolution was incomplete, Ruggiero said. She looked at him. Incomplete, he is the second party, Ruggiero said. The primary party was handled. The secondary parties were, he paused, not all accounted for. Sarah put her hand in her chest pocket. Luca, she said. Your brother is in Reggio, Ruggiero said. He is fine. I have someone with him. He said it with such easy specificity that she understood he had already arranged it, before coming to find her, before she'd had a chance to ask. Mr. Cavalcante? She said. Is aware, Ruggiero said. He is handling Fiorello. You will stay in the East Wing. She went to the East Wing. She sat on the storage chest in the linen room, which had become in 3 weeks the specific place she went when things were too large to process while remaining upright and she needed walls around her. She thought about Fiorello at the gate, about incomplete, about the specific architecture of a problem that appears solved and turns out to have depth she hadn't accounted for. She thought about Enzo Cavalcante handling it. She thought about the east study door, and the open door, and the second coffee on the counter at 7:45. About first week, and the sewed pocket and I have been attempting to understand why that is. She stayed in the East Wing for an hour and 20 minutes. Then the house went quiet in a way that was different from the Tuesday-Thursday quiet. A resolution quiet, a settled quiet, the kind that follows the end of something. Ruggiero came for her. Done, he said. Completely? She said. Completely, he said. Mr. Cavalcante has a particular way of completing things. He said it neutrally, factually, the way someone describes a known quantity. She went back to her 8 o'clock round. She finished it. She put her cart away. She went to her room. She sat on her bed with the photograph of Luca in her hands, not in the pocket, out of it, held in both hands, and she thought about 4 years and 42,000 euros and a problem that had been managed by someone she had not asked to manage it, twice, completely, on her behalf. She thought about what that meant, about what she was going to do with it. She thought about it for 3 days, and then she knew. The first Sunday of December. The Via Cavalcante held a formal Sunday each month. Not a party, not a dinner, a reception. 2 hours, afternoon, the specific social machinery of a man who is required to be visible to certain people at certain intervals. Staff were present, but reduced. Sarah was one of 3 housekeeping staff retained for the event. She had been to 2 of these Sundays before. She knew the architecture. Guests arrived, circulated, were attended to, departed. Enzo moved through it with the economy of a man completing a necessary task, present without being available, which was a distinction she had noticed the first time and confirmed the second. This Sunday, she was in the entrance hall at 2 p.m. with a tray of small things when the doors opened and 41 people began arriving. She moved through the room. She was good at this, invisible in the specific way of someone who has made peace with invisibility and uses it, who knows how to be present in a room without requiring the room to acknowledge her. She was crossing the hall with an empty tray at 3:15 when she heard her name. Not Serafina, not Aquino, just Sarah. In a room of 41 people, in the voice she had been listening to for 11 months and had never heard use her name before. She turned. Enzo was standing 8 feet away from her. He was looking at her with the look she had catalogued and still could not fully read. The one that had no equivalent in her experience of how people looked at her, the one that was its own category. She was aware that the room had shifted slightly. Not obviously, these were people practiced at performing unawareness, but the particular quality of 41 people choosing not to look at something was different from 41 people genuinely not paying attention. She walked to him. Up close, he was very still. She had never been this close to him in a social space, always across a desk, across a room, the professional distance of a house and its management. Up close he was. She registered this without knowing what to do with it, uncertain. For the first time in 11 months, she was looking at Enzo Cavalcante and seeing something she could read. "There's something I want to ask you," he said, low enough that it was between them, not the room. She waited. He said, "I would like to take you to dinner." She looked at him. "You have asked me this," she said, just as quietly, in front of 41 people. "Yes," he said. "Why?" "Because," he said, "I was going to ask you privately and I kept finding reasons it wasn't the right time, and I have been finding reasons for 3 weeks, and this morning I decided I was done finding reasons." A pause. "And because I wanted," he stopped. Started again. "I wanted you to be able to say no publicly if that made it easier." She stared at him. "You wanted me to be able to say no," she said. "Yes, in front of all these people." "If you need to," he said. "If the answer is no, say it here and I'll manage the rest, and it won't touch your position or anything else. I give you my word." He said it simply, directly, in the register she had come to understand was his most honest. The room was very carefully not watching. She thought about 3 weeks of the open door and the second coffee and Ruggiero at 8 o'clock, about first week, and the sewed pocket, and the picture of Costanza still on the desk corner. About 42,000 euros and a brother safe on a seawall and Fiorello at the gate, completely handled. She thought about what Ruggiero had said in the linen room. He has a particular way of completing things. "Ask me again," she said. "Ask me properly." His eyes held hers for a moment. Then, and this was the thing that 41 people in the entrance hall of the Via Cavalcante would remember for the rest of their lives, the thing that would be described and recounted, and still not quite believed, even by those who had seen it. Enzo Cavalcante went down on one knee. Not quickly. Not dramatically. With the deliberate, unhurried economy of a man who has decided to do something and is doing it all the way. The marble was cold. His trousers were going to be ruined. The room made no sound. He looked up at her. "Dinner," he said. "Tomorrow evening. Wherever you choose." A pause. "And after that, wherever this goes." Sarah looked down at him. at the man who had not knelt for the Bishop of Palermo, or the Commission table in Naples or his father's grave, down on one knee on cold marble with 41 witnesses, and nothing performed about it. Nothing designed to impress, just a man asking a question and giving it everything it was worth. "Please get up," she said. "You're going to ruin your trousers." Something moved across his face, the almost smile she recognized from the e-study, from the one moment per encounter when his control gave slightly at the edges. He stood. "Tomorrow," she said. "Yes," he said. "I'll choose the restaurant." "Yes," he said. "And I need to call my brother first," she said. "He should know." "Ruggiero has his number," Enzo said. "He can arrange." "I have his number," she said. "He's my brother." She met his eyes. "I'll call him myself." The almost smile went the rest of the way. "Of course," he said. Around them the room began, carefully, to breathe again. She called Luca that evening from her room with the door closed and the photograph on the nightstand. He picked up on the second ring. He sounded, as he always sounded now, like someone who was trying to be better and was not sure he was succeeding. "Sarah," he said. "Everything okay?" "Everything is fine," she said. "I have something to tell you." She told him. Not the full version, not the debt and the months and the East study conversations and Fiorello at the gate, but enough. She told him about the man she'd been working for, and the question he'd asked today, and the fact that she'd said yes. Luca was quiet for a moment. "The Cavalcante house," he said. "He's a Cavalcante." "Yes," she said. "Sarah, I know what he is," she said. "I've known for 11 months. I've been in that house. I've watched how it operates." She paused. "I've made my decision." Another pause. "Is he good to you?" She thought about the sewed pocket, about first week, about the open door and the second coffee, and the specific way he'd said, "I wanted you to be able to say no publicly if that made it easier." About the trousers on the marble floor. "Yes," she said. "He's good to me." "Okay," Lucas said. "Not be careful, or are you sure? Just okay." The specific trust of a younger brother who has cost someone a great deal and knows it and is trying to give something back by believing in her judgment. She felt something unknot in her chest. She had not known it was knotted until it released. "The seawall photograph," she said. "What about it?" "I carry it with me," she said. "Everywhere, in my pocket." He was quiet. "The one from when you were 17, she said. "Before everything." "I know the one," he said. His voice had changed slightly, the way voices change when something unexpected arrives. "I'm going to put it in a frame," she said. "Not a pocket. A frame. On a shelf somewhere." She paused. "I think that's the right place for it now." He didn't say anything for a moment. "Yeah," he said finally, roughly. "Yeah, I think so too." The restaurant she chose was small. Not a statement restaurant. Not a room designed to make someone feel the weight of what they could afford. A room on a side street in the Prati district that she had read about once in a magazine 2 years ago and filed away as something she'd like. Someday, with the specific filing system of a person who has always had a someday list they don't always expect to get to. Enzo arrived before her. He was at the table when she came in, not performing patience, just present, the way he always was. He stood when he saw her. She sat across from him. The dinner lasted 3 hours. She would not remember, afterward, a precise sequence of what was said. Not because it was unmemorable, but because memory works differently on things that matter, storing feeling before words. What she would remember, that he asked questions and listened to the answers with the full attention she'd seen him give contracts and security reports, the same quality brought entirely to bear on what she was saying. That somewhere in the second hour she told him about Rio and her mother's garden and the shipping family and the daughter she'd helped raise for 3 years. And he had listened and then said, very quietly, "You've been taking care of people for a long time." "Yes," she said. "Who takes care of you?" She looked at him. It was the only question he asked all evening. One question, in the bond zone of a late dinner in a small room, and it was the question no one had asked her in 4 years and 3 months of carrying a photograph in a sewed pocket on a 4-year timeline. "I'm working on that," she said. He held her gaze. "So am I," he said. What happened to Fiorello, and to the network that had sent him, and to the name that had been spoken in the entrance hall in October with the specific weight of a threat dressed as information, is not a story Sarah ever received in full. She had learned, over 11 months, that some things in that house operated on a level she was adjacent to, but not inside of, and she had made her peace with the shape of that adjacency. What she knew, within 2 weeks of the December Sunday, 3 men who had been connected to Luca's debt had lost, with the completeness that Ruggiero had described, the things that made them dangerous. One lost a business license through a regulatory process that no one could trace back to anything. One found his communications, professional and personal, suddenly unreliable in ways that resolved only after certain conversations had become impossible. One relocated to a city 3 countries away, for reasons his associates described as personal, though no one could point to the personal thing. The principal man, the one Enzo had dealt with in October, the night of the voice through the closed door, had simply ceased to be a factor. What form that ceasing took, she did not ask and was not told. She had decided, in the linen room on the storage chest with her hand in her chest pocket, that she could live with the shape of this. She had looked at it directly, which was unlike her. She was a person who managed things obliquely, by peripheral attention, and she had decided. The decision was hers. She had not been pressured toward it. She made it with her eyes open, the same way she made everything, because she was constitutionally incapable of the alternative. 3 months later, Sarah walked through the Via Cavalcante with her cleaning cart at 7:15, which she still did, because she was good at the work and the work needed doing, and she had no interest in not doing things she was good at. The east study door was open, as it always was now. Enzo was at the desk. He looked up when she came to the doorway. "The Ruggiero briefing is at 9, she said. The Tuesday call moved to 10:30. The Rome contact had a schedule conflict. And Filomena says the kitchen order arrived with the wrong olive oil, and she needs a resolution by noon." "Tell Filomena I'll call the supplier," he said. "I already told her you'd call," she said. "I needed you to know I told her." Something moved across his face, the almost smile that had become, over 3 months, a full one when she caught him off guard. "The photograph," he said. She looked at the desk corner. The photograph of Costanza was there, where it had always been. Beside it, new, in a frame she'd bought herself at a shop on the Corso Vittorio Emanuele, was a photograph of a young man on a seawall, with his head tipped back and his eyes closed, and the Straits of Messina behind him, laughing. Enzo had not moved it. She had not told him she was going to put it there. She had simply put it there. On the Monday after the dinner, in the morning before he arrived, he had not said anything about it. He'd simply moved his things slightly to accommodate it, as though it had always been there and he was making room. "Luca called yesterday," she said. "He got the job." "I know," Enzo said. She looked at him. "Ruggiero mentioned there was an opening at the Reggio Port Authority," he said. "He may have passed that information to someone who passed it to your brother." A pause. "I was going to tell you." "With warning," she said. "With warning," he said. "This is me giving you the warning slightly after the fact, The warning is supposed to come before the action, she said. I'm learning, he said. She looked at him for a moment. At the desk, the photographs, the cracked spines of the books, the winter light through old glass. At the man she had been unable to read for 11 months who had turned out to be, when she finally could, someone whose edges matched hers in specific ways she was still mapping. I'll tell Philomena you'll call about the oil, she said. Yes, he said. And I know, she said. She picked up her cart. Dinner Tuesday. I haven't forgotten. You remembered without being reminded, he said. I remember everything, she said. You know that about me. I know, he said. The full smile, this time unreserved, first week. She went back to the corridor. She went back to work. The house settled around her, Philomena in the kitchen, Tano at the gate, Ruggiero at 6:45 with his coffee and his willingness to talk if you started. And she moved through it with the ease of someone who knows the geography, who has learned the floorboards and the drafts and the closed doors and the open ones, and knows which room she belongs to in a house that had taken 11 months to become hers. The chest pocket of her uniform was empty. The photograph was in a frame. She noticed the absence and found it, for the first time, exactly right. Tell me in the comments, was it the knee? Or was it the line? I wanted you to be able to say no publicly, if that made it easier. Because every time I write these, something lands differently for different people, and this one has 2 moments and I genuinely don't know which one hits harder. Tell me. If this is the kind of story you're here for, where the most ruthless man in the room turns out to be ruthless on her behalf, follow along. New story every day. One last thing, the photograph of Costanza is still on that desk, and Sarah has never asked about her, and Enzo has never explained, and there is a conversation between them that hasn't happened yet. There is also a room in the East Wing, not the linen room, a different room that Sarah has cleaned around for 3 months without being told what it is. She has a theory. She may be right. Comment if you want to find out.